Senator Cruz, thanks very much for joining us.
Good to be with you.
Much more respectful, much more peaceful, no interrupting tonight. What happened?
Well, look, I thought we had a great debate tonight, and I was glad to see that there wasn't the personal insults, the attacks that have been at some of the previous debates. I think voters are at a point where they're making serious decisions, and they want to see real contrast between the candidates, contrast in terms of policy, contrast in terms of vision, contrast in terms of solutions, and I think tonight gave those contrasts.
Were there sort of instructions going in? Don't interrupt each other, don't get into fights, be much more respectful, let the other guy make his point, then you'll have a chance to make your point?
Well, look, the last couple of debates, we saw two of the candidates on stage really getting nasty and insulting each other, getting into each other's body parts, and things that just frankly had no business on the debate stage. And I think everyone got weary of it. That's something I've tried to stay out of from the beginning, but I was glad to see that instead of talking about the insult of the day, we were talking about foreign policy, about economic policy. We're talking about the things we should be talking about.
What's the biggest issue that emerged from this debate tonight that differentiates you from Donald Trump?
Well, I think we heard Donald say a number of times that nobody knows the system better than he does. And he's right. Donald Trump is the system. He is Washington. He is big business. And my focus is very different. My focus is on the little guy. My focus is on small businesses. My focus is on the single moms and the students and the steel workers and the people who are getting hammered right now. It was really striking in the whole back and forth. Donald talked all the time about how he would cut deals, he would abuse the immigration laws and hire people illegally or bring in foreign workers because it helped him. He would talk about supporting liberal Democrats, supporting the Washington establishment because it helped him and helped big business. I think what people are looking for is someone that actually stands with the people against Washington and really fights for jobs and economic growth.
You heard him announce that Dr. Ben Carson will endorse him tomorrow morning. Were you trying to get Dr. Carson's endorsement?
Oh, listen, Ben Carson is someone who I like and respect. He's a very good man. I congratulate Donald on getting that support. But, this is now an election that's being decided by the voters. And I'll tell you, actually, in the last couple of days, I was very pleased to get the support of Carly Fiorina and Senator Mike Lee and Mark Levin, all in the last 24 hours have endorsed our campaign. And so as it is becoming more and more a two-man race, and I think for the voters, for anyone that has a path to the nomination, it is effectively a two-man race, you're going to see people dividing it up, and it's going to be the voters that decide.
On the issue of destroying ISIS, you heard Donald Trump say he's open to sending 20,000 troops in to kill ISIS. Are you ready to send 20,000 U.S. troops in there to try to destroy ISIS?
Well, we should do whatever is needed to destroy ISIS, but as I mentioned, there are a lot of tools we haven't used yet. We haven't used overwhelming air power. We haven't been arming. Typically, when you're engaging in it, you use the tools you have, and boots on the ground are the last step. But that needs to be driven by the military expertise, not by politicians either trying to act tough or not.
If the military says to you as Commander-in-Chief, 20,000 troops, you send them to Raqqa, you send them to Mosul, you got to go out there, and on the ground, air power alone won't do it, will you send those troops in?
Absolutely, yes, but here are the principles we should follow. If we need to use military force, and with ISIS we do, we should use overwhelming force. We should kill the enemy, and then we should get the heck out. We shouldn't be staying there for decades and trying to turn Iraq or Syria into Switzerland, but we need to do everything necessary to utterly destroy ISIS. That's what I'll do as Commander-in-Chief.
I want you to clarify one comment you made that's generating a lot of commotion out there. You told this to David Brody of the Christian Broadcasting Network. You said Donald Trump does well with voters who have relatively low information. And a lot of those voters, and millions of them out there, think that was an insult. What did you mean by that?
Well, look, maybe I should have used a different term. Donald himself brags about, I think his words were that he loves the poorly educated. And he talked about that he could go on Fifth Avenue and shoot someone and it wouldn't lose him any support. And the point I was making is the people who are supporting Donald, they're angry. They're angry at the corruption in Washington. They're angry at politicians who haven't been telling them the truth. They're angry at politicians who've been supporting the big money interest over the working men and women of this country. But what we've seen is when they learn more about Donald's records, they discover that he's been doing everything they're angry about, that he is Washington, Donald is the system. And so what we see, let's take, for example, the state of Louisiana. It was a good example. Donald won the early vote in Louisiana. But as we did a better job of communicating Donald's record and my record, We won on Election Day with those same voters because they realized if you want someone to take on Washington, you got to ask who has taken on Washington, and I've done that over and over again. Donald has never once shown the courage to take on the special interest, and I think the people who are supporting him, when they discover that, they don't end up staying and supporting him.
You going to win any of these 5 states on Tuesday?
Well, I certainly hope so. We're competing in all of them, and what we are seeing happening is we're seeing Republicans uniting behind our campaign, those who don't want to see Donald as the nominee, because if we nominate Donald, Hillary wins. And so we're seeing supporters who had been with Marco Rubio, who had been with John Kasich, who had been with Ben Carson or Carly Fiorina or others, coming together and uniting with us, and we are welcoming them to our team. And it's one of the reasons we've had 8 big victories already, and we look forward to hopefully a lot more.
Senator Cruz, thanks very much.